We are in a healthcare desert here. In fact, we do not, my rural women in the panhandle of North Florida do not have reliable access to maternity care. In fact, one of my rural counties doesn't even have a doctor in it, much less a hospital. There even is not a regularly visiting doctor to the local health department there. They haven't been there since COVID. This is further in this 13 county region. There are only 3 maternal infant specialists in the area, serving at least 13 counties, and requires up to a 2-hour drive to access. Medicaid, she taught us, does not provide genetic counseling or screening before 15 weeks gestation. It won't cover the cost. When someone does screen positive for a genetic abnormality, they cannot get an ultrasound until they're 18 weeks because Medicaid doesn't pay for it. Even then, when they can get that appointment for an ultrasound, they have to marshal their resources to make the trip. And many families don't even have the gas money and have to wait even more weeks to get here. The plight of these women and girls struck a chord with me because of my own mother. My devout Southern Baptist, praying, believing, faithful mother anguished her entire life over the traumatic loss of a pregnancy of a baby she wanted badly. And this is the soundtrack of my life. I will tell you that I've lived with her story and her grief. She never talked about it without incredible trauma being expressed. My parents lived in rural North Carolina early in their marriage when they got pregnant. They were joyous and thrilled. My mom was one of 8 siblings. Everybody else in the family had children. She wanted to be a mother in the worst possible way. At 28 weeks gestation, she delivered toxemia, which is in today's world called preeclampsia. Her blood pressure was so alarmingly high, she was temporarily blinded. Her condition so extreme, her breathing was impacted. And as the medical staff fought for her safety, and as she screamed from the gurney out of fear, my father was told, "Your wife's not going to make it. You don't get to have both. Do you want your wife or do you want your baby?" He chose my mom. My mom was then in the hospital for a year where they continued to fight her blood pressure problems. My father sold Christmas cards in July to help pay the hospital bills. The only thing that saved them from poverty was the fact that my mother was transferred to Duke Hospital, where she became part of a medical study of the Kemper Rice diet, and she left that hospital weighing 69 pounds after spending a year there. She almost died in that rural community with one physician in a rural hospital, and who did not have to pause in his attempt to save her life on that gurney to write a letter confirming her pending death in the absence of said letter, much less go find a second doctor to put in writing that the termination of her pregnancy, as this bill requires, would have saved her life. She would have died, and people across this state, and particularly the women in my rural counties, are going to face the same consequence that my mother could have faced, which was death. It never occurred to me, ever, that my mother had an abortion. I did not think of that. She never thought of it that way, and my Baptist mother would blanch at the notion that this was abortion. But in terms of what that medical procedure is, it is an abortion. It saved my mother's life. I'm here because of that procedure. My children are here, and they had the most fantastic grandmother that ever walked this planet, and my mother. What we have done with an already cruel bill from last year is make it worse. We are creating a death sentence for women, and I will not support this bill, and I ask you not to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.